Today I'm going to look at the 3D Disto projection feature. This is a feature that is probably rarely used. However, it's extremely powerful in what you can do with the 3D Disto in this capability. So typically you're out in the field and you're capturing points and you're bringing it into the 3D Disto and then exporting those points as like a CAD file, 3D DWG file. But with the projection feature, it's a little bit different because you can import in a DXF file and then you can project those measurements onto a surface and really kind of bring that DWG to life in the real world. There's a couple of things though to consider when doing this or when using this feature. This feature is not a three-dimensional feature, meaning you're not going to create a room in 3D and then project points onto all the walls at the same time. You're going to have to focus on a single plane at a time. Basically, you're able to upload the DWG file and position it correctly on this certain plane that you're looking at and go from there in terms of projecting the points. So there are a couple of PDFs that were made a little while ago, but they're still helpful nonetheless to kind of get an idea of what is going on as far as the projection function. You have the ability to basically, like I was saying before, project on a single plane at a time. So whether it's the wall or the ceiling or a slope ceiling or a ceiling or a floor, you're only going to focus on those areas. If you have a curved surface, this is another situation where things can get a little wonky because on a curve, technically, if you were to space something out on a grid, you would actually see it a little bit differently than you would in the DWG side of things or DXF setup. So here we have a curved ceiling with points that need to be equally spaced across that ceiling. Well, when you take that curve and you look at it, what you need to do is you need to establish a couple of points where a plane can be established. So this is an example where we have 2 points and we have this curve projection. Now, when we look at this in CAD, what we have to do is we have to superimpose a straight or a flat plane over top of this curve. So if we were to take this curve and we were to flatten it, it actually, even though these are equally spaced points, in a flattened view, that actually look like they were closer together on the ends. So that concept, so it's going to look kind of a little weird, but you got to think that's the curve section. So it's going to be closer on the ends and spaced out more in the middle. However, when it's projected onto the curve, it'll project it correctly on that wall. So that's one thing to note when you are looking at the projection feature. Another concept, and this is again kind of what I started with, is whatever you're doing, you need to basically project points onto single planes. So this is a staircase example. So we have staircase that's going up and it's wrapping up. Well, it's on this wall. There'd be points on this wall, and this wall. So what we need to do is, as we examine it, we need to establish some registration points, hit those points, hit a couple other key points that we're going to be able to use to reestablish things. And then when we bring this out of the disto, if that's the way we're doing it, when we bring it out of the disto, we would have to isolate those as 4 separate DXF files that we would then import into the unit. So this is that first wall that we were looking at. This is the second wall that we were looking at. Here's the third wall that we were looking at. And then finally the fourth wall. So this is the concept that we need to have when we're doing the projection feature. So I'm going to get out of this now and I am going to jump into AutoCAD for right now because I'm just going to create a file and project it on the wall versus taking measurements first, then creating the file, then projecting it, because I think you should be able to get the gist of things from here. So what I'm going to do is hop over to AutoCAD And in AutoCAD, we're going to just create a DWG file. I'm in my office right now. That's what this is. Here, my 3D Disto is set up behind me. I'm sitting right here at this desk. And we're going to project probably on this wall here, which is that wall, just because, or maybe I could do it on this wall just because you can see it better. But doesn't really matter that side of things as much as setting up the file correctly. So I'm going to just start a new file. So I'm just going to hit new, and I'm going to say new plain DWG file. And when I zoom out of this, it's just blank. There's nothing to it. It does have some page setups, but they're pretty moot point. So what I want to do is I'm just going to create a rectangle, and I'm going to make this rectangle just a certain size. So I'm going to say, hey, I want this rectangle to be, I don't know, let's do 48 by 48. So, and I'm going to zoom extents because I was way zoomed out. And the other thing I want to do is I want to pull this bottom corner into my 0, 0 point. So I'm just going to say 0, 0, 0, 0, comma, 0, comma, 0, and zoom extents. And now I've established this nice rectangle, and I've established it at the 0, 0, 0 point of the drawing. So in this rectangle, I'm going to draw a couple of lines. So let's pull in about 6 inches, and we're going to draw a line that comes out, and we'll hold this back 6 inches. So let's just make sure that this is a good number. So it's 36 inches. Yep, so that sounds about right. And I'm going to say, hey, let's put an arrow on here that is 10 inches. And we'll just mirror this. So I am literally just working in AutoCAD, doing some line spacing, nothing too crazy. So if I wanted to, I could throw in another box. Maybe we'll go dimension 12 by 12, and we'll move this. Let's move it in 3 and down 3, and then let's throw in just basically like a little grid here. Before we start the thought of making this a projection file, we have some things to do here. First, we can have no rectangles in this projection file. These are just going to be lines. So I'm going to grab everything that I just drew and hit X for explode, and I'm going to explode them. So all I am looking at are lines. That is key. That's key for this stuff to show up. So here's that. Now the next key is to put some points in here. So in AutoCAD, point is going to be made by typing in PO and then enter or space, and then we would select where we want that point to go. If for some reason yours doesn't show up like mine, you can actually type in DDP type, and you can edit what comes up. So right now I have this crisscross, which is good. I actually want to make it so that this point is coming in at a 0.25 because they get too big sometimes, and I want to make it an absolute number instead of actually let's do 0.5 instead of a relative, because when you zoom in and zoom out of the relative, it's gonna change the size of that. So here's my point. Now I'm just gonna start adding some points to the mix. So I'm gonna add one at the end, add one here, add one in the middle. These points are going to be very telling of what's happening next. So I'm gonna actually divide this line into 4 or 5 equal segments. So we just added a few more points. Here, let's add some more points. So again, we're just kind of dressing up this file with some points on all the ends of these lines. And we'll go one in the middle. So we can add as many points as we want to get this situated. We can even add some points in random space here. It doesn't actually have to be on a line. Okay, so here's our drawing. This is everything that I wanted to project on the wall. You know, we got everything spaced out, really good numbers. The key to this is everything needs to be flat. So when I orbit this, look, there's no 3D projections. There's none of that stuff. It's just a flat plane on the 0, 0 plane on a top-down view in our world UCS. And we would make sure that all of this is just lines and points. That's key. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to just give it a name. I'll just throw it on my desktop as projection test. Oops, projection test. Doesn't really matter the format you save it, because what we're going to do after this is I'm going to save it again. So save as, so we'll just file, drop down, and save as. And when we save as, we need to save this as a DXF file. And we're going to just say it's a DXF to the 2000. Doesn't really matter. We're just going to dumb it down as much as possible. It's just points and lines, so it's not going to change or do anything. So again, I'm going to save this to my desktop as projection test DXF. Sure. Okay. So now that it's saved, I'm going to just switch back to this view because we'll use that later. And I'm going to open up my my spot on my computer where it has dropped a shortcut, which is my desktop. And unfortunately, I have a lot on my desktop. But on your desktop, there should be what's called a 3D Disto data folder. You're going to open that up. You're going to go to Import. And we are going to find and open this in a new window, that that DXF file that we saved on the desktop. So projection test DXF, and we're just going to move it there. That's fine. Oh, because I have it open, it's yelling at me. My fault. So I'm going to shut that off. No, I don't want to save it in drawing format because I already have it in the drawing format. We're going to go back to these guys. And we're going to drop this DXF, move it to that spot. Okay, so that's all I did there. And now I'm going to open up the software. And we're going to take a look at this. My Disto is turned on. And I'm going to go, hey, I want to go to the file dropdown, applications, and I want to say projector. So when we do the projector, we have a couple of different options. We can do flat on the floor, ceiling. We could do vertical on the wall, or we could do sloped. Let's just pick on the wall because that's where I want to put it. And when we pick it on the wall, just pick 2 points on the working area. So I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to move my Disto over. And there's my wall here. And I will do it on this far wall because I forget there's a camera associated with the Disto. So I'm going to hit the first point, just anywhere randomly on the wall. It's just kind of trying to get its orientation. Now I'm going to hit the second point. And now it's going to say, hey, pick further points of interest if you want. And actually, these points of interest are going to be used when we drop this file in. So what I want to do is jump in and I want to say, hey, I want this next point to be the top left-hand corner of where my projection is going to be. So this point number 3, and I'm going to say, yep, that's right. I don't need anything else. And now we could project points just kind of set up like evenly spaced points if we had that, or I want to import from my DXF files. Yes. Perfect. So now it says move grid to final position. So this blue is our file, and these are the points of interest that we located on the wall. So like if you had a certain reference point that you want to use, obviously you want to make that a point of interest. But remember, I said there's point number 3 is going to be my top left-hand corner. And look, it's already kind of connected to that. So it's saying, hey, from your drawing to that top left-hand corner, or to that point number 3 is 8.5 inches off, and then 31.5 inches on the diagonal. Well, I want these to line up on each other. So what I'm going to do is leave it like this, and I'm going to come over to the side here, and I'm going to say, hey, I want you to take these 2 points and align them. And when I click this, they should pop over. And so here, now it's been aligned. And I can do a little bit. I can actually move this up. So see how it says moving up, moving down. If we want to adjust it, we can move it to the left. We can move it to the right. So those are all options. We can actually do some rotations if we needed to. We could rotate it by 90s. And then we can, I do want to align those again, so I'm going to align them. And now I'm going to hit this checkbox. And now it says, hey, start picking your points that you want to project. So now when I say, okay, I'd like to project this point here, and I click the Disto button, it's actually going to move, and it's blinking on my wall for right where that is in relation to that point that I took and these reference points that I took. So it's blinking there. I can make a mark on the wall. And then as I go, I can actually just click and hit, and it'll show us the point that I projected already as being red. Now it's projected point number 5. We can use this too and use that to move around. The little remote control that comes with it is another way to use this projection feature. The arrows act is similar to this. So we can keep going. And as we go, we're just projecting these points every 6 inches or so. And we're seeing exactly what's happening. And we just literally go through the motions with everything here. So all that drawing came in. I'll see all these points that I did randomly, see everything else. So this is the way that you would use the projection function with the 3D Disto. If you wanted to take points on the wall first, the only thing that you're going to do in that situation, and I will show you this because it is a food for thought. And when we're done with this, there's nothing really to save here. It's just going to, you're just kind of using it to project the points. We're just going to hit close. And we can make adjustments if we needed to, but I'm going to just hit close again, and I am going to get out of the projection function. And now I'm going to take a measurement. So what I want to do is I want to take a measurement on this wall, and then I'll show you what happens when we bring it into CAD and how we would get that set up for a projection feature. So if I go and I take a measurement, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take 2 points on a straight wall. That's just how you start. This is just going to set up our 0, 0 point, which we've just done with 1. Second point, I'm going to move over a little bit and take it again. So now we have our 2 points. Doesn't really matter that they're level. The 3D Disto has leveled the file. Everything is fine there. But now what I want to do is I want to take some points of interest of this particular wall that I can bring into the projection side of things. So what I want to do is I'm going to actually come right down to the bottom of the wall, right above where this baseboard is, and I'm going to go right into the corner. And in person, I would be doing this where my eye, where I'm actually holding my tablet really close to the corner, but I'm going to hit this corner. So here's my first point, and let's trash the line that connects it. My second point, I'm going to come up here. Now, when I take measurements, normally I avoid corners. That's just something that I do. In this case, it's not as critical because what's going to happen is we are going to add the dimensions, and we're going to add, the critical projection points to the DWG file. So this is really just a reference for me to get things positioned, and then I can make the tweaks like I just showed you, where we adjusted a 30-second to the right or 30-second up or down or twisted or something like that. So I'm going up in the top right-hand corner. It's a little hard to see. We actually can change this brightness, and maybe this is a good time to use that. Nope, not really. So I'm actually just looking with my eye. Yep, I'm right dead nuts in the middle. So here's my wall, and my desk is in the way down here, so I'm just going to leave this out. And we'll close this off as like, hey, yeah, this is the wall that we want to scan to, right? So I'm going to save this now. And we're going to save it as projection test, or projection, we'll say, all caps, projection. We'll do _v1. Okay. And then we'll hit the checkbox and name the file. Same thing, projection _v1. And when I click OK, it's going to save this file in the software, and I just got to go to the export and export it. And now I'm going to go to my my folder where these exports live, and I'm going to open it up, and we're going to show you the next step on how to get this ready. So here's my projection version 1. Here's all the files associated with it. We want to open up the DWG file. We don't want to open up the 2D or the 3D DXF. We could open up the 3D one, but I'd rather just open up the DWG file. The 2D DXF is going to be meaningless for us, but I'll show you what it does just so you have it. Oops, guess I shouldn't have it. So let me go back. So here's my DWG file, and here's my 2D DXF. So the 2D DXF doesn't work because it's now just taken everything and flattened it. And when you look at it in this term, see, it looks the same, but when we orbit it, now we are looking at the wall the way it was, like this. So you gotta be careful. That 2D flatten is not really great in a situation where we're working on something vertically. So here is my wall. And everything is good. So when we look at this, we can go, okay, all right, well, like I want to project points here and here and here. But there's a problem with that thought. When we set up our projection file, we set it up from the top. This is the way the Disto reads that file. So we can't set up our projection points like they were if we were looking at the wall in elevation, because this is the front view. That's going to give us trouble. So what we have to do is we have to orient this file, or orient a similar file to this one, so that we are looking at everything from the top view. So what I do is I orient it the way I want in this front view. And I am going to turn off my points. So if I orbit this, you'll see we have some ID points where we have 3, 4, and 5, and we have 1 and 2. I don't really care about those. I know that the 3, the 4, and the 5 are in the corners of my room. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just turn those layers off. Oops, I don't want to turn that one off. So I am left with just a whole bunch of lines. And I'm going to look at it from the front view, and I'm going to do something different here. I am going to adjust this to a different UCS. So I'm going to say, hey, I want to change this so that I'm looking at it from the top down. So if I say UCS, and I change it from the world that I'm in right now, like if I were to draw a rectangle, it's not going to let me do anything. If I were to draw a line, look, it's not going to let me do anything because I'm in this world view. So if I type in UCS and I change it to the view that I am in, notice this just changed to top. Now I can draw my rectangle, I can draw my line, I can do everything like I would normally, because we are now looking at it in this unnamed view, which is the top down. So these lines have all been scaled appropriately. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to grab these guys minus the first two because they don't really matter. And I'm going to copy them. And I'm going to do what I should have done last time and just do a new one from no template. And I'm going to paste these in the 0, 0, 0 point. Okay. And now here's my wall elevation. This is just a line to connect the two. If I wanted to, I could trash that. And now here is the line that I want to add for the arrow that I want to note, right? And then let's throw in some points. We're going to actually throw a point in on all of these points. And here, and here, and here, and there, and there. And I'm going to do that DDP type. And I'm going to change this to that with a 0.5 size that is absolute. See, here's all my points. This one, let's do point here, here, and then if you use the divide command on something like this, it'll actually automatically put in the points. So here's my points. Now I would save this again as a DXF file. So I'll say projection version 2. Okay, and we'll save as. We're not going to have the size issue with this one because I did it as no template. So we'll save yep. And now we'll close this. No saving because it's trying to save it back to a DWG file. We'll go back to the office layout and back to the 3D Disto software. And now I'll start a new file. And we'll do the same thing, but this time we're going to say, hey, I want to project. I want to project on a vertical. I want to pick my 2 points. And again, these 2 points are kind of random. They're kind of similar to the first 2 points that I would take when I'm establishing the file. Same concept applies. So give it a second to catch up here. So I'm just going to come up and take almost the same spots that I took the first 2 points. These have no relation to the file orientation. It's really just to establish where that plane is. Now I'm going to take further points of interest, which are going to match the 3 points that I took before. So now I'm going to go right to the corner here. So that looks good. Ignore the crack in my trim. Okay, and we don't care about these lines that are connecting them this time because this is really just for our reference. I'm going to come up to my second point. Let's see how close this DWG is now that we flattened it. So here's my second point. Okay. And last point, here's my third one, which is the opposite corner. Okay, and let's go down. And we'll go right to that corner. Great. So here's my 3 points of interest. Notice, do they look familiar? So now we're going to go back, hit the checkbox, and it's going to be there. And there it is. Now here's the fun part. So now it says align. Look, notice anything similar? So I can just say, hey, I want to align this one to this one. And go, whoop. Now, if I wanted to, I could test and be like, hey, if that was the starting point and I knew it, if one of these was a definitive starting point, I would say, okay, let's test it. But if this looks good, I'm just going to hit check. And now I'm going to start projecting those points. And it's going to project it right where it's supposed to be on the wall. So it's extremely precise once you get it set up. So I've thought about this for like anchor bolt locations or anchoring locations for like wall paneling, for anything like that. It's extremely powerful feature, but the biggest thing that you need to remember is in CAD, you need to make sure that this is set up for a top-down view and that it's saved that way as the DXF file. And then you need to import it in, and it needs to be less than that 2 megabyte size. So hopefully this information helps. Hopefully this kind of gives you the concept of the projection feature. And again, just think of it as separate planes. So if I had points to project on this wall and points to project on that wall, points to project on the wall behind me, I'd have 3 separate files. Let me know if this helps. Hopefully it does. Let me know if you have any questions. You can always reach me at adam@advanceddimensions.com.